Hi all, we're going to look at another instructive game now, and this time the central theme is playing with the isolated queen pawn. The game is Raymond Keene versus Anthony Miles, played in the Hastings tournament of 1975. So Raymond Keene playing white, played knight f3, and after knight f6 c4 was played. So we have here an English opening. Black plays symmetrically, and after knight c3, knight c6, now Raymond Keene plays e3. So he's intending to play the move d4 now, trying to avoid black gaining a bind on that d4 square. After e6, d4 was played, and now we see the start of this structure called the isolated queen pawn emerging. After c takes d5, black played knight takes d5, and now bishop d3 was played, and here black saddled white with the isolated queen's pawn. So this has pros and cons to it. One advantage of the isolated queen's pawn is that white potentially might have outpost squares on e5 and c5, so it can support these two outpost squares. So that's one thing to bear in mind when you have an isolated queen's pawn. The other thing to bear in mind is also, these semi-open files now, the C and E files, in themselves provide attacking opportunities potentially. So as well as providing, say, a knight outpost, if black's castled on the king's side, white might have to worry about rooks being switched into the attack via, say, the e file, which actually occurred in this game quite spectacularly, as we're about to see. After bishop e7, Raymond Keene castled and Miles castled now. Now we see rook e1. So potentially bear in mind now this idea that this rook can be used for the attack later on. Knight f6 was played, bishop g5. So this pawn's immune at the moment because of knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes h7. So actually black, he played knight b4, chasing that bishop to the b1 square, and now he played b6. So Miles is thinking he's going to get a very comfortable position on this isolated queen's pawn, especially pressurising these light squares. So that d5 is a great blockader square for this pawn. Knight e5 was played, and now we start to see some kingside pressure emerging, especially like f7. But if black ever played g6, there'd also be pressure on g6 from this knight. So that's an important thing to bear in mind. Bishop b7, and now rook e3. So we see now this e-file, semi-open e-file, being used as a road for the rooks to travel in to the black, to attack the black king. And after g6, it would seem black's very, very solid on the king side. This game shows that you have to look beyond the superficial now. Raymond Keene played actually rook g3, so seemingly absurdly pointing his rook where, this pawn is like a fortress, it would seem. But after rook c8, now bishop h6, so the rook is now really pressurising g6, along with this piece here, this bishop on b1, and this knight on e5. And after rook e8, here it's almost very tempting to play what was played in the game, but before telling you that move, Raymond Keene, he first chased that knight away from a3, and this is a very important preliminary to this amazing move which comes up next. I'll give you 5 seconds to see if you can spot it, starting from now. Raymond Keene spectacularly sacrificed with knight takes g6 here. So he's ripping open the black king position. After hg, bishop takes g6. The lines are really ripped apart on black's king. Now say here f takes g6, what would you play here? There are two moves. One of them's very, very strong, and the other is not really that strong, and might even give black an advantage. So I'll give you another 5 seconds in this position to have a look at the next attacking move, starting from now. Right, Raymond Keene, instead of playing rook takes g6, which is the obvious move, he plays actually a very, very precise move. He plays queen b1. So targeting that g6 pawn. Other things would be less than ideal. For example, if he had played queen d3 here, then there's knight e5, and black is using that pin to gain a valuable time to defend against this attack with a big advantage. Also queen c2, let's have a quick look at queen c2. Then this is still actually quite strong. Rybka gives an advantage to white even after knight e5, the very resourceful knight e5. Because say d takes e5 here, knight e4, and that pin is being used to stop white's attack. But the way Keene played it with queen b1, black is really defenceless here. Knight e5 was played in the game, white just took it, and after knight e4, white just took the knight on e4. So things are just being mowed out of the way. After king h7, now knight f6 check was played, and this is a mate in 5 now. Bishop takes f6, queen takes g6 check, king h8, and now bishop g7. This is just clearly mating. Bishop takes g7, queen takes g7 mate. So that was a really powerful demonstration of the isolated queen's pawn and the attacking opportunities it can provide the player with that seemingly, clear structural weakness. Let's have a quick overview and summary. So it started off as an English opening. So white accepting this isolated queen's pawn and really making great use of that semi-open e-file to bring a rook into the attack. So we see now, after the bishop's neatly tucked away on b1, it coordinates very, very well with this knight and this rook coming in. So that g6 is not as solid as it seemed, especially after white played a3. So he avoids any black opportunities for defending with combinations such as if he hadn't played a3, this really wouldn't have been so strong, because there might have been possibilities for knight c2s and bishop takes e4s from black. So by chasing that knight away first, then the opportunity was really ripe for this knight sacrifice. So it really ripped open the black king. And after queen b1 there was hardly any defensive resource available. So it was just the end of the game with this beautiful mating finish. So the moral of that is, even if you have an isolated queen's pawn, look out for the potential opportunities it gives you, because you could have a really strong attack in the making. Thanks very much. Please leave any comments on YouTube.